Folks, welcome into That Betting Show for April 24th, 2019, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. He's Teddy Sabranti. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. I'm Donnie Seymour at Rightside VP. Teddy, the word of the night last night, 50 points. Was it a good shot? Was it a bad shot? Did it matter in the final outcome for the spread? You betcha it did, Teddy. Last night going down, hot topic of the day, Lillard goes for 50. Portland drops OKC. But how about that closing line, Teddy? 118-115.
Yeah. Any Blazer, if you're a Blazers fan, you love Dame hitting the 37-foot three as he dribbles way beyond the arc as the shot clock winds down, as the game clock winds down. If you're a fan, you love it. If you're a bettor, it's your absolute worst nightmare scenario, the three to win the bucket. And guess what? You're laying 3.5, 4. If you bet it early, you got the three, and good for you. You did your job. That's what you. But nonetheless, not the three they were hoping for. Of course, I'm going to point the finger all at OKC here. Look, Lillard made this incredible shot to win the series. Second time he's done that, where he's hit a game winner at the buzzer. But OKC led by 15 midway through the fourth. They're supposed to win that game and send this back for a game 6. But the Thunder closed out the season kind of the same way they played it, in very disappointing fashion. This was not a good team after the All-Star break. They showed it again last night, even though they got their backers the money.
Teddy, looking at this game overall, it just seems like a microcosm of Oklahoma City for the past couple years outside of Durant. Monster numbers from Westbrook, because if you said, hey, coming into a closeout game, my point guard is going to get me 29, 11, and 14, and we're still going to lose. It just seems like that's the way it is, 11 for 31 from the field. My question to you is not so much a gambling question, but you see it hasn't worked since Durant has left. Exits, they have a huge salary tax that looks like it's going to come up upon that 2019-2020 season. Is it the time that they move on from Westbrook and try to start over, maybe center around Paul George, or you just ride it out and say, hey, we're Oklahoma City, we're a smaller market team, we have some superstars, we'll just see what happens out here?
So it's 3 straight years now. The Thunder have been bounced out in the first round. Obviously, since Durant left, they haven't been the same type of team in the postseason. But I got mixed feelings about Westbrook, but I'll tell you this. You're a small market franchise. You got a marketable superstar. You keep that marketable superstar, and it's just that simple. If you don't win titles, they're in the playoffs every year, and that may be good enough for their fan base. So I would not rebuild in Oklahoma City. I wouldn't even think about it. You've got 2 elite players on that squad. You can find some pieces to fit around them.
Teddy, around the rest of the NBA on Tuesday night, we did have some closing nights around the league. 3 teams were put to sleep for good. But again, we are a gambling show here at That Betting Show. Teddy, there was one astounding number throughout the first round, which we did see a lot of in the NFL season, that says, Teddy, if you pick the winner, they're going to cover the spread and get after it. 33, 2-1. Is that a real number?
Yeah, I mean, all of this talk, we talk, oh, there's no value here. There's no value there. If you pick the winner of the game, you're 33, 2-1 so far here in the postseason. And even the one, the push, you could have won that game. That was Orlando-Toronto, game 3. That opened Toronto -4, closed 5.5. I graded it a push. Actually, at the closing line, it's a loser. But there were definitely people that cashed winning bets on Toronto in game 3. So I graded it a push. The other 2 were the Clips and the Warriors, where the Warriors only won by 8 and laying 9.5. And then, of course, last night with the Blazers winning by 3, they closed as 4-point chalk. So basically, all you got to do is pick the winner of these games. All this talk about value, if you pick the winner, you're going to cash winning bets. 33-2 in the first round might be just as good. Well, they're not going to be that many playoff games, but the percentage-wise, I wouldn't be shocked if it's every bit as good moving forward, although the competition does step up a notch in round 2 of these playoffs.
We saw a couple teams last night, Teddy. Sixers -9 jumped out to that huge lead, covered easily. Toronto -11.5 easily closed out the Magic. Then you had a good game there with Denver, who, gets that upper hand advantage, 3-2 heading back to San Antonio. The one question I want to ask you, Teddy, for gamblers out there when we take a look at it, because sometimes it does get in our heads. Would you have that moniker saying, you look at the Sixers game last night, even though it was a closeout, and you say, well, I think the Sixers can win, but the Nets can hang around. If you honestly don't believe, if you're looking at a spread between like 4, 5, 6, or 7 points, if the team you're betting on as the underdog can't win, is it still worth the wager? Because as that number sticks out right there, if you're saying, the Sixers are going to win, they're going to win by that margin. Just take a second to maybe talk about what's in the mind of a gambler saying, they have to win this game, or can they stick around? Just that whole mindset.
Well, the thought process for me, when you're talking about how to maximize your return on investment, when you see a trend like this where the straight up winner is 33-2-1 ATS means that if you're playing dogs, you're playing them on the money line, or at least a portion of your wager on the money line, because you're getting the plus price returns as opposed to the minus 110s, where you're not getting anything resembling a plus price return. So that would be the way that I approached it. And that's the way that I have approached it in the first round. Look for the dogs that you like. Yeah, you can take a plus the points, but make sure you have a significant portion of your wager, whether it's a third, whether it's a half, on the money line, whether it's all of it. Some people are, less risk averse and more gamblerific. And I wouldn't argue with anyone taking dogs on the money line in the postseason. When they win, obviously they cover. And when they cover, they tend to win.
Teddy, we never like to see, and especially if you're holding a ticket for a certain team, the referees, umpires, or whoever comes into the game and makes an impact. I don't know if I've seen, look, we just saw a horrific call in the the Los Angeles Rams game versus the Saints. I get that. One call changed the dynamic. The other team still had a shot in overtime. But this game, I don't know if I've ever seen a call this impactful from a Game 7 where one team was absolutely dominant the entire night and a 5-minute major penalty called against the Vegas Golden Knights, and 3-0 lead disappears after 5 minutes into a 4-3 deficit, Teddy. It's amazing to watch. Sports never disappoints. But if you're a Vegas fan, if you had a ticket on Vegas, or if you had the under, this game was absolutely outrageous. I can't imagine, because again, I'm coming from a perspective of just being a fan, not betting on this game. But if I had a ticket and you're sitting there with a 3-0 lead midway through the third period, and you come up with a goose egg in that one, that was outrageous TV to watch. And you're from Las Vegas. I can't even imagine the seismic impact out there alone, just in the fans.
Stunned silence in every sports book in town. I mean, literally. Although you know how Vegas is. There was a fair bit of San Jose money. It wasn't all locals at every casino, but certainly the books in town. It was a great result for the books here in Las Vegas because there was nothing but money on the Knights in that contest. But I'm telling you, you lose that when you go on the road for that Game 5 and you go flat, and you got to come home and win that Game 6. All the pressure's there. And then you got to go and win Game 7. And look, last night's was crazy. Look at the quotes from Marceau. How do you pronounce his name? Marceau. It's an effing joke.
Marceau, yep.
To call 5 minutes for that, it changed the whole outcome of the game. Like, seriously, what is that? It's so disappointing. The game's not even close. It's 3-0. Call a 2-minute minor? Okay. But a 5 for something you don't even see? You just call the outcome. It's a effing joke. It's embarrassing. That's what it is. Now, note, neither the referee signaled for a penalty as a play went on. But after you got treated on the ice, all of a sudden now it's a game misconduct. And, quote, the rule is at the discretion of the referee based on the severity of the contact. The refs didn't see it, but it looked bad. So, lo and behold, Vegas goes home. That's brutal. As a bettor, when the refs screw it up and your team blows a 3-goal lead midway through the third period, it doesn't get any tougher than that. It's absolutely brutal. On the other hand, if you had a San Jose ticket last night, hey, you found some money. Remember these wins as much as you remember the losses, because the losses will come. This was a bad one, a particularly bad one. But there will be bad beats if you do this. You have to remember the times you get the lucky wins to help calm yourself down when you suffer a loss like the one you suffered with the Knights last night. And for as bad as you feel, maybe make you feel any better. The Knights feel just as bad, if not worse.
No, and even when you're watching, Teddy, the 3-0 lead here, and you're right. The key ingredient was no call was made. Then they talk about it and make the call. Now, if you want to say they want to guide by, hey, look, we saw the play, we missed it, he got cross-checked there. You want to give a 2-minute penalty for interference or 2-minute penalty for cross-checking, I see it. Or even if you play it out and say, well, he really got hurt bad, he's not coming in, and give the double minor, because if you're not really a hockey fan, the double minor is a 4-minute penalty. So if you score in the first 2 minutes, you get the second. So what's the worst case scenario, Teddy, for the Vegas Golden Knights? You're still up 3-2 with about 7.5, 8 minutes to go in the game. But the fact that they gave them the major penalty, which is an unlimited scoring advantage for 5 minutes, that is horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you about the nuances of the call. All I can tell you is that everybody that I've talked to is insane about this. And, there's nothing the NHL is going to do about it. There's not a replay situation. This was the refs discussing it and deciding to make a call on something they didn't see, which probably isn't a good look for the league in Game 7, where one team's got a 3-goal lead and the refs change the outcome of the series. Nobody wants to see that.
Teddy, real quick on this. I know the people of New Orleans, the fans, banded together and tried to get an injunction so the Super Bowl couldn't play. Are you leading that injunction out there in Las Vegas today?
Not even maybe, my friend. Look, it happened. Deal with it. And how'd that injunction work for those Saints fans? It cost them legal fees. They didn't really stop the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to be the guy that says, hey, yeah, sure, let me pay a bunch of money for nothing. Not interested. Thank you.
Just the way it is. Our overnight line movers, SPRodds.com, your single best place on the internet to check those line moves. They're always moving. Teddy, and moving this morning. Orioles seeing a little bit of action. Yes, the Baltimore Orioles getting a little bit of action, opening around 110, sitting around 125, 120 at certain sports books that we're looking at here at sportsbookreview.com. White Sox and the Orioles, total of 10. Santana, who's been roughed up, versus the lefty, Means.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we talk about this every day, and I'm going to keep talking about it every day. Because the betting markets in MLB, there's a lot of knee-jerking. There's a lot of auto bets that seem to get made from the sharpest bettors out there. The wise guys, the syndicates, any of the names you've heard, they're betting MLB. The kosher kids are out there betting MLB. Okay, but what are they doing? They do the same thing every day, same thing every year. The tired retread starters get bet against. Erwin Santana's. Those guys get lent. Of course, Santana's got an 8.22 xFIP this year, and that's better than his ERA. So it's not surprised that Santana's getting bet against. But the markets bet against pitchers like Santana. I call them the tired retreads. They're veterans that this is who they are. And the markets support the young guys, particularly the young lefties. And they don't care that Means was an 11th round draft choice, who's been a draft choice, been bouncing around the minors since 2014. They do care that he has 9.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has the advanced metrics they're looking for. Hence, Baltimore, god-awful Baltimore, and their 2 home wins this year, they're taking money today. That's the way the betting markets work in 2019.
Teddy, CeCe Sabathia opened up getting a little bit of money here versus the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, as I will continue to say, because of how ridiculous that name came in a couple years ago. Now they have dropped it to just the Los Angeles Angels. 106, total of 8.5. The one thing I want to ask you, Teddy, in this, because, when we try to look at the true numbers here, if you take a look at the whole season batting for the New York Yankees, when they had Murderer's Row to start the season, slowly chipping away with a lot of injuries from last night, even looking at it, this lineup doesn't look anything like it looked day one. Is there any value to that, saying, you know what, they're still major league hitters, now you're getting the Yankees on a much cheaper line that you would get? Or you just say, I don't trust this lineup, I'm going to go with the Angels at this point?
Look, if you've been doing that, and the markets have done that in the first 2 games of the series where the money's come on LA, and the Yankees lineup's been good enough to win games. Mm-hmm. I understand. It's not Murderer's Row. You don't have Judge. You don't have Stanton. You don't have most of the big bets for New York. But the other end of the equation is the Angels stink, and Felix Pena is not a guy who I'm particularly excited about backing. The markets aren't too excited about him either. He's lasted 5 innings in just 1 game this season, and his only track record against the Yankees coming out of the bullpen wasn't a pretty one. CeCe's not a guy that tends to get a lot of market support. Again, he's the old tired retread against the young stud. The Yankees lineup all banged up. No surprise. There's been some Angels money. But at the same time, the Yankees have shown the class of the organization in this series. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see that continue tonight.
Couple Game 7s last night, Teddy. Back to the NHL, another Game 7 tonight. Maybe a memo went down from the league to the referees tonight saying, hey, you know what? Might want to stay out of this and swallow the whistle unless you really need to call something tonight. Markets are now sitting at 150 or higher between the Carolina squad and also Washington. If we take a look, Teddy, Pinnacle sitting at 145, Chris sitting at 155. So you have some movement off the opener that Pinnacle had at minus 133. Hurricanes Capitals total of 5.5. Peter Mrazek versus Holtby in net tonight. Grab them because it's Game 7. Maybe we got a little bit of value in this game, Teddy, or no? What are you thinking?
Well, look, I mean, the Caps won a whole lot of games like this one on the way to the Cup last year in terms of closing out teams when they had the chance to do so. Now, in terms of Game 7 wins at home, that's not Washington's MO. And any Caps fan will tell you, prior to last year, these are the games that Washington always seems to lose. But Holtby played his best in the biggest games last year, and obviously so did the Caps. So the market's reacting to that, at least somewhat, in early betting action today.
Some people, Teddy, might be going fishing again in the NBA. We got two of them tonight on Watch What You Bet here on That Betting Show. Houston looks to turn off the Jazz on Wednesday. Rockets favored by 8, total of 212.5. Moneyline split plus 315, minus 375. 8 p.m. tonight from the Toyota Center down in Houston. The Jazz are 45-39 against the number on the season, 23-19 against the number on the road. The Rockets, Teddy, 43-40 against the number in all line games and 25-16 at home as a favorite.
Utah's talking the talk. The quotes coming out of the Jazz locker room are, yeah, we're not going down to Houston to just play. We want to win this game, bring it back to Utah, which they're supposed to say stuff like that. But the quotes, they sound like they meant, look, Rudy Gobert, physicality was the difference in game 4. The first 2 games in Houston, we started the games pretty soft. That's not who we are. The fact that we lost the first 2 games, we had a reaction of pride. We came out ready. Game 3, we were ready. Game 4, we were ready. And Game 5, we're going to be ready. That's a bet on quote. If you believe that even if they're ready, that it's going to make a difference. What's happened in this series, certainly, with a tight Game 3 and then a loss for Houston in Game 4, the shooting percentage. The Rockets shot 50% from the field in Game 1. They shot 48%, or just shy of 48% in Game 2. The 2 games in Salt Lake City, they were at 38% and 35%. And if you're shooting at those clips, it's going to be difficult to cover numbers like this one. And we've seen, Gobert and Derek Favors really do a nice job protecting the rim over the last 2 games, giving Harden some difficulties, no question. The quotes coming out of Houston aren't about improving their offensive efficiency. They're talking about, hey, we didn't like what we did defensively in game number 4. Let's not forget this Rockets team, the final 15 games of the regular season, they were number 2 in the NBA in defensive efficiency, and they certainly started out the postseason, the first 3 games, with excellent D. Chris Paul, the way we won most of those other games was imposing our defense. We were able to get stops on demand, and we didn't do that in game 4. No surprise tonight, the Rockets put a little clamp down on Utah. I'm not excited about the Jazz plus the points in this one. Utah got their win, and they may battle, but Houston's the class here. And the fact that the Warriors may go out tonight as well, they're supposed to go out tonight as well, in terms of close out their series, is meaningful for the Rockets, as these 2 teams, in theory, would meet in the next round. And the last thing Houston wants is Golden State to have a rest edge. So I do think that Rockets close out the series tonight. Whether they win by margin, well, 33-2. With 1 push, ATS, when you're backing the team to win, covering the point spread here in the first round, I could only look at Houston minus in this one.
Teddy, before we get to this Clippers game and this Golden State Warriors up next, I just want to ask you a quick question on closing out the series, because we have an interesting thing tonight that we took a look at yesterday. Teams that lost the previous game, then went on the road, getting hammered. Now we're taking a look at a sort of little bit different circumstance. Still a closeout game for the Houston Rockets, but the last game that we saw them play, the Utah Jazz did win and trying to use that momentum and go back to the Rockets. The previous couple games that we've seen, the team lost going back on the road, got hammered in that game. You put any weight behind that saying, hey, you know what, they won, maybe a little bit of momentum, or is it just one of those things to say, hey, look, 3-1 in our building, let's not let it go any further here?
I'm sure there's a positive momentum for Utah, but positive momentum isn't enough. The Rockets missed a bunch of shots in game 3. They missed a bunch of shots in game 4 and didn't play much defense. I think Houston's capable of playing a much better game, and they were no-shows in game 4. That's something the Rockets do, particularly in the fourth quarter. When the Utah went on their run, there were no answers for Houston. I would not anticipate that being the case in a game 5 situation at home tonight. Although, again, if Utah punches them and the Rockets are tested, you don't want this going back up to Utah for game 6. That would be not a nightmare scenario for Houston. It's not a game 7, but it would most assuredly affect their potential to knock off Golden State in the next round. They have to close this out tonight if they have any hope of beating the Warriors.
Teddy, outside of a 31-point collapse, it's really been the Warriors series, and they look to close it out tonight. We're all anxious and waiting for round 2 because the stakes certainly get amped up, but one more game to go here. One would think Warriors, Teddy, they were about 14.5, a total of 234. Moneyline split plus 1025, minus 1600, 1030 tonight. So you got a nice little doubleheader after that first game. You can flip it over and watch on TNT a little bit later tonight. The Clippers played very well as a dog this year. 47-38 against the number. 18-24 against the dog. They have not played that well, but have covered some spreads. 14-15 against the numbers of road dog. Warriors on the opposite hand, Teddy. 37-48 at home, covering that big number. Are they the walking dead, the Clippers heading up to the Warriors? Or are they going to put up a little bit of a show tonight.
I mean, the Clips have been badly outclassed in this series, but they haven't been blown off the floor in every game. All that being said, Golden State's track record in these Game 5 at home is a bet on track record. Last year, they knocked off their first two opponents, San Antonio and New Orleans, under these circumstances. They knocked off the Cavs in Game 5 of the 2017 finals. In fact, in the entire Steve Kerr era, they've lost a Game 5 at home just once. And that came, we're all going to remember this one, came in the game that Draymond Green was suspended, allowing the Cavs to rally back from their 3-1 deficit. So these Game 5s, Golden State comes home and takes care of business. The Clippers in the Doc Rivers era, well, the Game 5s haven't been good. They've lost a Game 5 in each of the last 5, but we're talking about winning by margin here. And the one thing that the Clips have done in this series, well, obviously they had their one, incredible comeback from 31 points down, but they've been able to get offense from a variety of different places. Lou Williams scored 36 points in that win. He only had 28 points in the 2 games in L.A., but, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went nuts. He had 25 points in Game 4. He didn't do much the first 3. There are a number of different weapons. And, the Clips, Doc Rivers talking about what he expects his team to do using Gilgeous-Alexander as an example. Quote, they're playing off him, and instead of just standing there and being a spot-up shooter, he actually decided to make plays. That's what we like. So, Rivers is hoping for the best here, but what do we say? When a team is done, they're done. At some point in this game, I would expect Golden State to go on some kind of a run, and when they do, it's bye-bye Clips. I know the character's there. The talent isn't. And that's likely to be a problem in this Game 5 closeout setting tonight. But obviously, laying 14 and a half, no point spread bargains with Golden State. The Warriors, one of the 2 teams that's won a game in this postseason without covering the point spread.
Talking about some talent, Teddy. The Phillies have the talent, but that one not showing up apparently right now. The Phillies in the midst of a 17-game stretch without a day off, and it's certainly showing. The gas has run out of the tank. 1 run the night before, 0 runs last night. Getting hammered by the Mets, but we are getting a little bit of action here from the Philly side, Teddy. Opened up around, pick'em 110, now sitting at 124, 126, depending on what sportsbook you're looking at SBRodds.com and sportsbookreview.com. Velasquez on the mound, decent ERA, 2.55. Vargas, 9.58 ERA, but this is a tired and banged up Phillies team coming in. Can Vargas rise to the occasion? And one thing we know about Velasquez, a very interesting pitcher, gets the strikeout ratios, but he's a lot of hit or miss. He can go 7 innings, strike out 13 batters, or he can go 5 innings, throw 105 pitches, and get hit around a little bit. Should be interesting in Flushing tonight.
That's ironic because the 2 starts that he made at Citi Field against the Mets last year were exactly that. One of them, I forget it was 6 or 7 innings, 2-hit shutout ball, dominated that ball game. Then he faced him again later in the season, and it was pretty ugly. Didn't make it out of the 4th inning of that one. It got bombed by that Mets lineup. I like this quote a lot from Todd Frazier, Mets third baseman. Quote, I know every win counts. I don't care what time of year it is. You can look back at how many teams have lost a division or a wild card by 2 games. They all count for me. A sweep be nice. We got to go out there and put our best effort forward like we've been doing. The Phillies have been held to 3 runs or less 5 times their last 6 ball games. You have the pitchers calling out Bryce Harper. You have there's going to be another of these retribution situations today after there was Rice Hoskins got hit last night. The Phillies are going to go after the Mets here in this one, so they're going to put extra base runners on. And the market's knee-jerk against Jason. Of course they knee-jerk against Vargas. Vargas is not, he's the ultimate tire retread. He's not someone that's going to come in and throw 6 innings of dominant ball. But last time out, 1 run over 4 innings against the Cards. The Mets won that ball game after getting bombed his last 2. And the market's knee-jerk against this guy every time he goes to the hill. Right now, Mets are a good team and the Phillies aren't. I could care less who the starting pitchers are.
No, it's kind of interesting you brought that up, Teddy, because in the 9th inning, they did throw Rhys Hoskins. So we'll see if there's any retaliation today. And if there is, you would think, Teddy, come from the Phillies side. So if you get Velasquez to throw in the 1st inning at one of the Mets batters, he's going to be thrown out of the game, and it could turn into a bullpen one. So we'll keep an eye on that there in Flushing Meadows tonight. Real quick off the mic segment. It's Christmas Eve for the NFL teams, Teddy. The draft is tomorrow. Pumpkins dancing in their head. What's going to take place? Some other news around the NFL. Big Ben looks to get his deal done before the draft. Another extension for him. Marshawn Lynch hangs it up in Oakland. Cleveland. And yes, Bruce Arians, the crabby old man, who I do really like as a head football coach, does have a point in saying, look, the NFL screwed us. Now it's time to get on and play. But tomorrow, Teddy, we'll have a nice little preview of that draft.
Yeah, we sure will. And this is what I'm going to say about the NFL draft. If you're looking about how teams were, what they were last year and what they're going to be this year, free agency far more impactful than the draft. All right. The draft is for hype. The draft is for fans, and the draft can be for bettors when it comes to props. You got good info, you've been putting the time in, you should load up on these things. They're beatable. All that being said, the draft grades, they're not just wrong sometimes. They're wrong every single year. Don't overreact to draft grades, even a little bit, and recognize sometimes the betting markets overreact to draft grades that are always wrong. So there's all kinds of opportunities to take advantage post-draft when teams are being viewed. Oh, they had a terrible draft. Oh, they had a great draft. Well, the jury's out on a lot of that, certainly for longer than the betting markets give when it comes to the NFL futures.
Teddy, the one thing you can't do in the NFL draft is go over your allotted 10-minute time limit. But the one thing we can do on that betting show is go over our 20 minutes, which we did again today. Me and Teddy will be back tomorrow to preview that draft. We'll have a lot of fun. Thank you for tuning in on that betting show on April 24, 2019, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. He's Teddy Severansky. Give him a follow once again on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. I'm Donnie Seymour, Right Side VP. Draft day tomorrow. Tune back in. Thanks for checking us out.